quick, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who tuned into the 6 Major Post show that Jesse and I put on last week. I feel like I did a much better analysis job overall than during the Invitational, and despite the long hours and the tons of sleep lost, it was still super rewarding. Thank you to Jesse for killing it alongside me as a co-host, Candor with the graphics, Crater for assembling the production, Tango Mango Down for running the shows, and Exatroika and Demo for guesting with us on day 3. And thank you, once again, for tuning in. FaZe Clan signed their Rainbow Six team on January 18th, 2018, nearly 4 years ago. 1,396 days and multiple team iterations later, they finally claimed their first international championship and Brazil's 3rd premier title of the year. It just feels like it was finally their time. I've been rooting for Astro and Cameraman to win something big since I got into Rainbow Six. FaZe has been my all-time favorite Latin American team for almost 3 years. Like, I wanted them to win back at the Rio finals in 2018, and I also realized that may be where the curse started.
The double! What a clutch, Canto! The madman! Silencing the crowd!
I don't even know how to respond to getting a prediction correct. Like, I think for reference, the only one I've gotten right was SSG winning USN 2019. Let's just move on. Overall, I thought Sweden was very well executed. Tech problems seemed minimal. The playoff stage looked incredible. Pengu, I thought, did very well casting with only a week's worth of preparation and no practice cast beforehand. And the tri-cast for the grand finals with Intero, Ace, and Dez, maybe there's some worth to exploring that format in future, because I thought that was really good. I thought the Sweden Major did a really good job of meeting the bar that was set by Mexico from 3 months ago, and it was ultimately pretty fun to watch. Aside from the low viewer count, but that is a topic I'm going to save for later. Friendship ended with BDS. Now Damwon is my best friend. Let's run through how the teams did quickly from bottom to top, and I'll do my best to make this fast, because usually these videos are longer than I mean them to be, so I'll just lightning round this. Starting with the teams that were last in their groups, ultimately, I think OXG were the team at the bottom of the table overall for me. Couldn't play with Fox A, only 3 players that were there could actually be together, and it was pretty obvious that they mentally checked out really quickly. I'm sure they would rather forget Sweden was ever a thing. Invictus also played without their starting 5, but Gig deserves props for how he played in Hysteric's stead, particularly on Sledge. But the team as a whole only won 1 game still, and ultimately my opinion of how well they were doing just kept gradually slipping as the group stage went on. Maybe SI will be different, but that assumes they get there to begin with. Dark Zero just didn't impress. Like, I didn't like their role assignments. I didn't think their attacks were particularly interesting, aside from them being the only team to successfully make a hatch drop meta thing work. It's just like too soon after a roster move, and they never take off immediately after switching things up. Look to Skies and Eclipse joining the team in the first place as an example of things needing a little while to get going. I bet Sweden was eye-opening for them, and probably great practice, but not impressive. And Furia just got crushed by the group of death. Like, it happens, and it's not like they weren't playing like themselves either. It just wasn't enough to beat Empire, and that ended up being the death knell. If they were in any other group, then they honestly would have probably made it out, but they just got squished, like a Kia hitting a driver's side overlap. I just saw that video at some point this week and really wanted to find a way to include it. For the teams that were 3rd place in their group, Sonics got progressively better as the tournament went, but that's not really saying much considering they did lose a game to IG and they only won 4 rounds over their first 2 games. That should probably set the stage for you. Really don't have much else to say about them other than please stop disappointing me. Chiefs had 1 really good game against Rogue to start groups that arguably they should have won, then looked pretty toothless against most every other team that they played. The only team that they beat in their group was OXG. I might have put a little bit too much stock in them too early, just for their first international appearance, which it's alright, it happens. If nothing else, Worthy is a damn good shot, though. Vitality, I honestly thought did really well. Beat every team in their group at least 1 time, and only missed out on the playoffs by losing a tiebreaker to Sandbox despite having the same record. They were a pleasant surprise. I just kind of hope that they can qualify for invites so we can see them play more. Empire only showed up for 2 out of 3 group stage days, and that ended up costing them. Got too far behind while SSG and Damwon were ramping up the pressure, and still didn't have the world's most expansive map pool either. Not surviving the group of death is disappointing, but somebody had to fall to the wolves in this group, and that just reminds me of what happened at SI 2020 when Fnatic edged them out. It's eerily similar, but we'll see how they do there. For the quarterfinalists, Sandbox They did me proud. They got out of a good group, they made playoffs, and then lost in the Korean Gauntlet of Death, which, to be fair, given how well Damwon played, is still really respectable. I would be over the moon if I were these guys, and they should be hitting SI with a pretty fair amount of momentum now. I will question playing Coastline that many times. Like, you can have a competent map, but please, expand your map pool a little bit more so we can see what you're made of. Team 1 kind of shit the bed, didn't they? Like, just a little bit? Good group stage, and the quarterfinal maps were close, so credit where credit is due, but it felt like they had strategies in playoffs that just kind of failed at the last hurdle. I think everyone expected that they'd go further. I think they played super solid still, but that exit is pretty disappointing. BDS... Space Station, to be fair, did do better than they did in Mexico. They survived the group of death, looked like they were adapting pretty well, had plenty of players who were clutching up like crazy, and that quarterfinal against NIP was closer than the quarterfinal in Mexico against Empire, but it's still not great. And it's making me worry that North America is about to be behind the rest of the world for a really long time now. To the semifinalists, Damwon Kia played incredibly. They won the toughest group, survived the Korean Gauntlet, got a good map selection against FaZe, and were this close to going to the grand finals. It now officially makes them the furthest advancing APAC team in Siege history through major tournaments, which is a crazy achievement. But holy hell, losing out on a grand final because a 1v1 didn't go your way has got to be haunting.
It's a 1 versus 1 Rin. It's all now. It's now or never. They see the angle. Soul's holding it down. He's got to push it, but Souls finds it.
Still though, they should be nothing but proud of what they have accomplished in Sweden. And they have now won themselves so many more fans internationally. I'm sure they'll be able to bask in the love a little bit before they go into SI and hopefully knock our socks off. And Rogue came what Rogue came to do. They got out of their group, they won a playoff game, they qualified for Sweden in the process over TSM. Leon got to good night me a couple of times on Twitter, and I think the whole team generally impressed a lot of people. To think that this team was in the EU relegation conversation only a few weeks ago, like, that seems like it's very far in the rearview mirror at this point. Also, can we normalize coaches wearing suits on stage? Because meepy, my god. That semifinal game against NIP wasn't that good though. They looked pretty lost. Speaking of NIP, they got revenge from Mexico. I think that's safe to say. Like, we can probably forget that Mexico even happened probably for their sake. I mean, even though they didn't play Damwon, which would have been probably one of the greatest rematches of all time, it's good to see that they still shook the demons off from 3 months ago and almost won this entire major because of it. Even if they were utter dog shit in stage 3 of BR6, they still performed where it mattered, and at a major is where it matters most. They just got shoved off the wagon before reaching its destination. Who did they get shoved off by? FaZe Clan. Well done. Well fucking done. It can be debated that they didn't have the cleanest tournament ever, but it still kind of seemed like things were just aligning and they took full advantage. It also seemed like they played two different sides of the same coin, because in the group stage, they had to play one team that was handicapped and another team that simply didn't play very well at all. And then when they get to playoffs, they had arguably the toughest bracket, which set them up for good success in the grand final, and then the tenacity to be able to claim victory, especially when your opponent forces infinite overtime. Like, kudos to them for staying in it. They were finally able to claim a victory in the org's nearly 4 years of operation in Rainbow Six. And it's about damn time. And to top things off, Cyber broke the record for most kills in a professional Siege match. Everything just lined up perfectly, man. So with that being said, Sweden is over. But what now? We are now entering the part of the year where Siege doesn't have as much action because all 3 stages for 2021 season are done. But what is happening over these next 2 months is super pivotal for the future. Regional finals for every league take place next month, which include relegation matches, which by the time this video comes out, I think Brazil and/or Mexico's relegation games will have already completed. Someone tell me if Santos is still here. Then we get into SI qualifier territory, which, as got announced yesterday, the open phase starts in December and the closed phase is in January, which obviously leads into SI in February. And there's some things that have come out about that this week that I'm going to touch on later. I don't know about you, but I think it might be a good thing to kind of detox from Siege comp for a little bit, honestly. There's been so much of it to watch this year. There's some news that's kind of alienated some people recently, and I'm kind of glad for the chance to take a break, but I am also very ready to kind of jump back into the thick of things soon, and there's still some more content ideas that I've got in the pipeline for the next couple of weeks. If there's anything else that you thought was interesting to mention for the Sweden major, because I clearly didn't go over everything very much, you're very welcome to leave them down in the comments, or some cool moments that you thought. You can keep talking about the FaZe Damwon game to all eternity because that has every reason to be given infinity. It's just insane how close Damwon came. Hit up my Twitter, my Twitch, and this YouTube channel for more in the coming days. Please and thank you. And stay tuned for announcements. TM. I'll see you later.